I worked with Dr. Eduardo Santos and Adolfo Quintela de Roca on quantifying the water vapor and CO2 fluxes in a rain-fed sorghum field in Colby, Kansas.
Kevin, can I interrupt for a second? Can you switch this into like a slideshow or something so we don't have the extra screen on there and focus in on your poster?
Yes.
And you should be able to zoom in on that.
I did not know how to do that.
Down at the bottom, there was a zoom option of your.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Right. So we worked on quantifying these water vapor and CO2 gases, along with other measuring atmospheric conditions, which sort of advise methods to improve the efficiency of rain-fed agricultural farms like a sorghum field. And these existing flux measurements were only sort of taken using laboratory methods. The work we did was definitely new because a lot of the technology we used is recent, and so it allowed us to take accurate field measurements. So we measured the fluxes and all the other conditions using a single eddy flux tower that we set up in the sorghum field in Colby. And we set this up before everything was planted, obviously, to get the most accurate time length measurements of this. And these additional support variables that we measured were things like air temperature, humidity, soil water content, digital photographs. As you can see on the left, this is the sorghum field before everything had sprouted. And on the right is the sorghum field the morning of August 2nd. And these fluxes were put together by two different instruments. The first one, the sonic anemometer, measured wind speed and sort of partitioned it into its X, Y, and Z directions. So we took the vertical wind speed, combined that with the measurements of CO2 and H2O concentrations from the open path analyzer. We're able to obtain an accurate measurement of flux up, going up from the ground and down back to the ground and whatnot. And these are some of our long-term results. And the trends were mostly expected. As you can see in the top left corner, the flux of CO2 has become gradually increasingly more negative as plants are accumulating that for their biomass. Evapotranspiration right here is a continually increased trend as leaf area index increases. And also very similar trend and graph with the flux of H2O. And these are a few of our more important support variables. This represents soil water content as a percentage. This is the air temperature in Kelvin. And this is the vapor pressure deficit, which is another measure of measuring humidity. It's the difference between how much the air can hold and how much water is actually in the air. And variables like the vapor pressure deficit can help us understand fluctuations in our data, such as an evapotranspiration is where there's a sudden drop, as you can see it's sort of towards the end, but it's not due to anything the plants are doing, or it's not super significant because, as you can see, the vapor pressure deficit, it was so humid that just because of diffusion, not a lot of water was coming out of the plants. So that's why a lot of these biometrics were important, because they were able to help us explain fluctuations in other variables and trends in our variables. And So this data set is really one of the first to provide accurate field measurements of these factors like H2O flux and CO2 flux. And it can also help us understand how they interact with each other on the field by looking at trends and differences in these trends and similarities and what variables are directly affecting one another. And that's sort of all of it.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Questions for